Chris exercises in front of a stunning snowy forest. He takes a call from Jamie, and they discuss their daughter, Willow. Chris admits he hasn't signed the divorce papers yet. He fears it feels too final, but Jamie confirms that it is. He prioritized work over family. She tells him to move on, and he promises to sign the papers. Jamie puts Willow to bed and tells her she loves her. That evening, Chris is at the supermarket buying ice cream. A girl named Sky asks for a wine recommendation. They meet again outside, and he offers her a ride to her motel. She hopes her abusive roommate, Lisa, is asleep. Chris invites her to his house for a while, and she accepts. They don't notice a man, Ronald, watching from the window. At Chris' house, Sky admires the place and warms herself by the fire. Chris pours wine, and they start drinking. Chris tells Sky he is retired after selling his home security system, Watchdog. They flirt, and he takes her to his wine cellar to pick another bottle. By 2 a.m., Sky thinks she should leave, but Chris offers for her to stay. They spend the night together. The next day, Sky returns to the motel, where Ronald mocks her for the walk of shame. Lisa confronts her for not calling, crying outside as Sky retreats to her room. Meanwhile, Chris thinks about his daughter. That evening, he visits the bar where Sky works. Walking her home, she reveals she has no family, having grown up in foster care. At his car, they catch a thief trying to break in. When confronted, the man smashes Chris's leg with a crowbar. Later, Sky wheels him into his house, offering to care for him. He cancels the private nurse, trusting her instead. She takes his Jeep to go collect her things, and then he gives her the security codes for the house. Lisa smokes outside the motel while Ronald watches through the window. He joins her, saying she was happier before Sky moved in. He insists he was her only real friend, but Sky appears, accusing him of jealousy. Ronald reminds them they're behind on rent. Inside, Sky packs as Lisa questions her constant disappearances. Sky flirts, and Lisa, desperate, says she'll die if Sky leaves. They kiss. Later, Sky wakes Chris with a kiss. They enjoy their time together, but Chris misses a call from Jamie. Later, Sky helps Jamie into bed and gives him his medication. They express their love. The next morning, Ronald bangs on Lisa's door, demanding rent. When she doesn't answer, he enters and finds her lifeless body in the bathtub. Later, Ronald talks to Detective Lane about her death. The detective asks if he ever saw Sky's ID. There's no record of her. Meanwhile, Jamie finally reaches Chris, who explains his accident. She offers to visit Friday and pick up the divorce papers. After the call, Chris looks for Sky but finds her in the shower. Chris searches through Sky's purse and finds pictures of her with Lisa. As he looks deeper, he accidentally drops other items. Sky catches him but shrugs it off, saying she'd do the same if a stranger were in her house. Later, Sky wanders through the house and discovers Willow's room. She lays on the bed, hugging a stuffed bear. Meanwhile, Chris wakes up and can't find his phone. As he searches, he sees a news report about Lisa's death. Sky returns with food, and he asks if she's seen his phone. She tells him they'll look after eating. When he brings up Lisa, she doesn't react. He tells her to call the police, but she refuses, casually admitting she killed Lisa. She explains Lisa had flaws but provided the perfect place to watch Chris, which she's been doing for 2 months. Realizing he's been set up, Chris demands she leave. Instead, she locks the doors. She has his phone, which controls everything in his house. When he lunges for it, she tasers him. Meanwhile, Ronald cleans the motel room and notices Sky's telescope pointed at Chris' house. Intrigued, he starts spying on the neighbors. Sky interrogates Chris, demanding passwords and security codes. When he refuses, she shoves him down and attacks him. Ronald continues using the telescope and spots Sky at Chris' house. She accesses Chris' bank accounts and transfers money to herself. Then, she returns to Chris, mopping his brow and apologizing for hurting him. She insists he needed to understand she was serious. Picking up a pair of scissors, she tells him it's time for phase 2. He must make Zoom calls to his brokers. She frees his arms, but he immediately grabs her by the neck, trying to strangle her. She stabs him with the scissors and escapes. To keep control, she shows him a video of Jamie and Willow, warning him of what's at stake. Panicked, he begs her not to hurt them. She coldly says she hopes she won't have to. Sky then takes pictures of Chris' paintings. The doorbell rings, and she answers it. It's Kiju, a car thief working with her all along. He assures her the paintings and wine in Chris' cellar will sell for top dollar. Chris sits alone in the kitchen, his mouth taped shut. Through the window, he sees Ronald approaching. Ronald breaks the glass and enters, unaware that Sky receives an alert and turns back. As he wanders the house, he talks to Chris, revealing that he has researched him and knows how wealthy he is. He removes the tape from Chris' mouth, and Chris begs for help. Ronald demands money in return but remains indifferent to Chris' warnings that Sky is coming back. Desperate, Chris offers him a priceless Picasso painting. Ronald, intrigued, starts to untie him. Suddenly, Sky returns. Ronald panics as she locks the doors, trapping him inside. He grabs a knife and threatens her. Chris urges him to kill her, but Ronald chooses to take the painting and escape another way. Sky picks up a sword and follows him, stabbing both Ronald and the Picasso. Meanwhile, Chris frees himself from the wheelchair and stumbles outside. The car is locked, and the alarm blares. Left with no choice, he hobbles toward a jet ski to escape. The jet ski hits a rock, throwing Chris into the path of an oncoming car. The driver, Sebastian, stops just in time and helps him into the passenger seat. However, Sebastian is working with Sky and takes Chris back to the house, where she waits. Inside, Sebastian and Sky kiss before she leaves to clean up. While alone with Chris, Sebastian introduces himself as Sky's stepfather. He taught her everything about identity theft and despises people like Chris, wealthy but doing nothing with it. Later, Sky talks to Chris, who tells her he truly loved her and would have given her everything. She dismisses his words, insisting she still needs the $14 million in bearer bonds. Chris realizes she needs his thumbprint to access the bank's safe. Sebastian enters and begins preparing his thumb. Outside, Jamie arrives with Willow. Willow runs to her room while Jamie senses something is wrong. Sky finds Willow and takes her to Jamie. When Jamie asks for Chris, Sky calls his name, but instead, Sebastian appears. Jamie demands to know where Chris is, but she and Willow are locked in a closet with him. Sebastian and Sky leave for the bank. Inside the closet, Chris notices the air vents. He suggests Willow crawl through them to unlock the door. As she makes her way through, he tells Jamie that Sky and Sebastian are after the bearer bonds at the bank. Jamie reveals that she had the bonds removed on her lawyer's advice, using them as leverage in case the divorce turned ugly. Meanwhile, Sebastian and Sky break into the safe, only to discover this for themselves. On their way back, they notice Willow is loose. Returning to the house, they search for their prisoners. Chris, Jamie, and Willow have escaped, but Chris is soon caught. Sebastian orders Sky to kill him. She hesitates, and when he yells at her, she shoots him instead. Chris seizes the moment, striking Sky with an axe before fleeing with his phone. Sky, following his blood trail, chases him. Using his phone, Chris calls the police and triggers distractions throughout the house. As Sky moves past, Chris ambushes her, and they fight. She overpowers him, but Jamie intervenes. Sky retaliates, striking Jamie in the leg with the axe. As Chris and Jamie cower, Sky prepares to finish them off until suddenly, a gunshot rings out. Willow stands behind her, gun in hand. Sky collapses, shot in the back. With the sound of sirens in the background, Jamie runs to her daughter, and as Sky dies, she tells Chris that her real name is Margaret. If you want to watch more, click on our next videos and playlist on the screen. Thanks for watching.